So, Doug, what are you planning to do in the next 45 minutes?
Clear off out there. My plan is to decorate some of these dishes. So some of these, like this one, will be decorated on the flat slab and then laid over the molds later on when they're dry. And I'm going to do some just slip trailed into the dishes like these that are ready-made.
Fantastic. Great. And Hannah, what are you going to do in the next 45 minutes?
I'm going to start, but possibly not finish, decorating this big flat charger.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Which is all you need to see, really. I'm just here to look pretty.
Off you go.
Grand, excuse me.
There we go. So I hope you are suitably impressed with our fantastic new stage cameras and everything like that. So talk about listening to feedback, improved systems. So there we go.
We forgot to bring our stirry sticks.
You forgot your stirry
It's hands in.
Of all the things to forget.
Of all the things. Yeah. So it's quite strange for us to be here in front of all these people.
Very.
We're kind of used to there just being the two of us in the shed, maybe Pip and Fred, who are over there. Yes, so hello.
So this is a big charger that I press molded on this plaster dish before I came. So it's still a little bit floppy, which is a bit worrying when you're going to put a big load of slip in it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Do you need the dish, the thing, the big square? Oh, I can't get down.
So I'm going to try not to make too much mess.
This bit takes huge skill just in itself, getting slip onto a piece of clay that size, especially one that's a bit too soft. It is very soft, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Jeopardy, first thing.
Yes.
Need
some help.
Yeah, a bit more.
Oh, blimey, me knees. Okay.
Quite a lot. Just put it on.
Where are you?
Not quite that much.
Sorry, Vice Chancellor. Bit more. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Thank you.
You got it? Probably just...
Sorry about that.
Should we just pretend we're in the workshop?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretend you're in the workshop. Your usual workshop chit-chats.
Yeah, I'm going to go make a cup
You
of
probably
tea.
don't want that.
Right, good. That's you done, yeah? I bet these... oh, yeah, go.
It's very interesting seeing two people on stage who always work together when normally they're completely strangers on stage.
Last time...
A lovely waltz going on as they move around, isn't there?
Last time, when I was here in 2013, I think, and I was on with Beth Stitcher.
Oh, yes.
With those huge sculptures, I thought, well, no one's going to come and see me. And of course, the place was full because they all came to see. And now this time, I'm on with Hannah McAndrew, for goodness sakes. Right. So my plan is to try and get some slip into this. Hannah uses... Do you want to explain a bit about your slip trailers?
Yeah. I'll just get this on centre.
Or shall I explain about your slip trailers while you centre it up?
Go on.
Hannah uses these trailers, which she makes out of a bicycle inner tube with a demijohn cork, a retractable pencil thing, and a bulldog clip. She'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. I use these rubber bulb type things. Hannah likes to be in control, don't you? But that's because Hannah can draw. I can't draw, so I like to be out of control, and I can blame it on the process. So, right, good. Banding wheel. There.
So my plan is to do a kind of repetitive pattern around this charger. Some of them that I do are very kind of loose floral designs. This one is a more of a repeated pattern, but very much relies on getting things in the right place, which might not be Quite so straightforward in front of you, look.
Please emphasize you are blowing and not sucking there.
Blowing, yeah.
Oops.
And do you find that you work at two very different paces?
Yes.
I was just going to say, it's quite...
I'm an old man. I work at old man's pace.
Yeah, very different.
But we do, yes.
Yeah. And in very different ways. You know, we use the same materials, we look at very much the same inspirations, but the outcomes are not the same at all. And I can't do what Doug does, and likewise, he can't do what I do.
Well, I can, but I don't.
Be my guest.
Yes, go make the tea.
Yeah, I'll make the brew.
You fed the cat.
I fed the cat. I hope my dad has.
Right.
So I usually start by putting borders on things, is kind of my safe space, I suppose.
Yeah. We have a question? Okay, the question is, what clay and what slip are you using, Hannah?
This is Valentine's red grogged, just the standard red terracotta, and it's a white HVAR ball clay slip. It's HVAR ball clay. and it's
HVAR ball clay slip.
just that and water, nothing else.
And this black slip is simply the red clay, the slip made from the red clay body, with 8 parts of that, 1 part iron oxide, 1 part manganese dioxide, and that's kind of the standard black slip. Right. I better squirt some on, haven't I? So this is, these molds, by the way, these were made from, here's one here, were Michael Cardew's molds from Wentford Bridge. And we were able to rescue them when Wentford Bridge was derelict, really. And so we've got them, and we handed them out amongst a few other Potter friends, and we have a stash of them. So it kind of keeps things living, you know. And they're great molds. So I'm going to try and trail, some kind of birdie, like that kind of thing. I might send this round, actually. The glaze is a bit thick on it, so it's gone a bit bubbly, which is why it's down here. And this one's the one that I'm going to do in a bit, where it's trailed on a flat sheet and then cut out afterwards. Grand, all right?
Mm-hmm. Watch this. That's the question. What do you use as a tip on your slip trailer?
It's, you know those little propelling pencils that you get? You turn the ends of them to get the lead out. It's a chopped up one of those. And yeah, demi-john cork in the end, wired onto the bicycle inner tube. But it's got to be a mountain bike one, because road bike ones don't fit over the...
And why do you use that inner tube? What's the advantage for you?
Much more control. The chap that I did my apprenticeship with, he'd worked with Mary Vondresch, and did obviously a lot of slip trailing through that, and this is what she used, this is what he learnt to use, and for me it's just got a lot more control than these things. And you know, I spend a long time doing it, and this tends to get a bit sore on your thumb, but this is a bit more like using a pen or a pencil. I find it, yeah, much easier to get what I want with, certainly.
So the question is, how long is the clay dried out for, and has it been hand rolled, your slabs?
We've got a slab roller, but it doesn't quite go wide enough, so have to half slab roller it and then finish it off by hand. I put it on Monday, I think. Sunday, Monday, can't remember. And it's not quite dry enough, but it's been under plastic while we've been travelling down. And
you brought it to Aberystwyth, which...
Yeah. So I'd usually like it to be a little bit firmer than it was then when I was trying to... Right. Yikes. as these empty out, you can just roll down the end of the tube to stop them filling up with air.
So the question is, do you draw out your designs first, or do you work a bit freestyle?
I squirt and hope for the best. Really, that's kind of, yes. I mean, I kind of have a few stock designs that I try and repeat. But you kind of have to know with slip. You've got to know where you're going with it before you set out, really, because you can't just. Well, you can. I'd have to wipe the whole thing off and start again. But if you make a mistake, that's it. You're stuck with it. So you kind of need to know where you're going.
Okay, that's a comment. Is Doug scribing onto the platter, whereas Hannah is laying down the slip?
No, it's just straight on the top. Yeah. So barely touching the surface, really.
Do you like the split screen, folks? You love a split screen.
Ooh, look at that. There's two of us up there.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, I'm trying not to touch the surface because the slip's so wet. I don't want to move the slip particularly.
The question is, do you always work on wet slip?
Ideally, yes. Yeah. Obviously, if it's something that's upright, you've got to let it sit just slightly, otherwise it will just right down the pot. But it's all about timing and the right consistency of the trailing slip and the pouring slip and
the slip. What happens if the slip dries out? Lost in concentration, I think.
Sorry.
What happens if the slip dries out?
Well, when you stick the wet slip on top of the wet slip, it kind of melds together, whereas if you trail straight onto the dry slip, it still works as long as it's not too dry, but it doesn't sit quite so flat.
and it can be quite sharp, can't it?
It can be.
If you've got a thick slip line, you can get quite a sharp edge to it.
I think I'm finished. How about you?
Go make a brew.
Feed the cat.
Doug, I read somewhere where you were talking about the brown pot, the brown jug. What do you think it is about the brown jug that makes it like, I have more brown jugs than I'd say any other object in my house. I don't use them. I can always find an excuse to buy a new one. Yeah. What's that about?
Well, absolutely, yeah. I guess, how I came to pottery really was schoolboy experience of being in the archaeological society at school, and my head teacher would take us out and pick up to medieval pottery sites, and we'd pick up bits of medieval pottery. So they were the kind of the pots that I knew and understood. And when I was 18 and started making pots, they were that's what pots made by hand looked like. So I guess that's when I fell in love with the brown pot, really. And then we have filled our house and overfilled our house and overfilled the workshop with brown pots and brown jugs and just the skills of those makers, really, country pottery makers, extraordinary skills. And we would like to emulate those skills. We don't copy, or I wish I could, I wish I had those skills. But, a yearning to have those skills, those great skills, I think, when people could do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Is there anything you can do if you make a mistake?
Curse.
Yes, there's a lot of swearing. The best one, actually, was Hannah swearing and swearing. You wouldn't believe. Sometimes swearing and
I
swearing.
wasn't, children. I really wasn't.
And there's this particular charger that she's working on, swearing and swearing. It's not working. It's not working. And, I was under the bench as best as my knees had let me. And that's the pot that now is in the Victoria and Albert Museum. So,
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's true, isn't it?
It is true.
Know. God, you made a fuss.
Question 1 sec. I'll come second here. Yeah. Great question, yeah. Okay, so if you're decorating a jug, how do you support the jug if you're decorating a vertical surface?
That's a wait and see thing, isn't it? I think, well...
The pot will be leather hard, so it'll hold its own shape. If it's too wet, it will collapse when you put that weight of slip on it. So it is, like I say, it's about timing. And we slip it, and I'll just sit it on the banding wheel in the same way and decorate round while it's upright, hopefully.
I think that the plan is to make one of those, isn't there, to have it ready for tomorrow's demo. So I'm going to try and make one of those pots that Hannah will then decorate. It is interesting to see how the slip hangs on a vertical surface. It's all about timing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Timing and consistency of slip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why I only do flat things. So.
Do you weigh your slip?
We don't tend to, occasionally we pint weight it, and then we usually find the wrong measurement, and then it's not right, and then just chuck a bit more water in. So it's very much by eye, yeah.
Finger.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah, it's all by eye, really.
On to the second one.
Show off. I've got pins and needles now from sitting on my foot.
And how long would you work usually in your own space on a piece this size compared to obviously Doug whipping them out every few seconds?
Just as long as it takes. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know.
You get lost in them, don't you, sometimes?
Yeah.
Does it need more dots? It always needs more dots.
And you have a drawing in your sketchbook there that you were showing at the beginning. Would you do that before you start, or do you, is that for demonstration purposes for us?
That was just in case I panicked and I couldn't remember.
But you would just sit down with a big, old, nice white charger in front
Generally,
of you.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do love decorating big flat areas. And when the kiddies were little, when they're tiny babies and they need attention quite often, don't they? And I started making lots and lots of small plates because I could decorate them in between needing to feed a baby. And I made very few big charges at that point.
But that is like geometrically really accurate, how you've divided that up by eye. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Got a question? What's your question? The question is, has Mom got pins and needles because of so much swearing? We haven't had that one before. I think it's one thing to be able to do this at all. It's another thing to be able to do it in front of hundreds of people and cameras and lights.
Sorry.
I was going to say, it's quite calm compared to our workshop in the school holidays, really.
Yeah, not so many Hot Wheels flying through.
Usually we've got Hot Wheels car tracks whizzing through past the wheel. Children wearing boxes on their heads being robots and heaven only knows what.
Ooh, this ain't a very good one. Never mind. Ben here was our wedding photographer, by the way, so we know him very well. We've been very close, haven't we?
I'm not available, by the way.
We put an end to that, didn't we? 10 years, 10 years. Look what she's done to me. Do you remember?
He'll pay for it later.
Right.
And when you're in the workshop, do you work through like whole bodies of work, or do you always have kind of work at different stages on the go? Or do you do a whole series of making and then glazing and firing, or do you have constantly kind of plastic work on the go?
Yeah, it's always my aim to clear the plastic, clear the plastic. I hate pots covered in plastic, but yeah, there's usually stuff at every stage, really. There's nothing worse, is there, than going back to the workshop and there's nothing on the shelves.
Right.
Quite like to leave something in progress just so you're not going back to a completely empty.
What a blooming mess, McAndrew.
Sorry.
Me and my knees as well.
Should have brought the Hoover.
Huh?
Should have brought the Hoover.
Should. Right. Good.
What are you going to do, Doug?
Right, what I'm going to attempt to do, which might be different from what I am going to do, I'm going to try and do some flat trailing with this here slip trailer, which sometimes works and sometimes really doesn't work. So this belonged to a well-known Welsh ceramics dealer and collector and authority on country pottery called Iswyn Watkins, who died a few years ago. But a good friend of ours bought a lot of pots from his estate, and we bought a lot of them from him, and he gave me this slip trailer. So Iswyn Watkins' slip trailer continues.
That's amazing.
Whether he'd be pleased or not, I don't know, but right. Oh, my knees won't do it. I've got rheumatic knees.
Oh, do you want me to do something?
It's old age.
Yeah. I've got good knees.
It's 10 years of grovelling. Right, I'll do it up here. Grand. Thank you.
Just get the camera on you while you're doing that.
So we do really, most of the time, have a pretty idyllic lifestyle, really. You know, it's been great to be able to. We have a workshop in the garden, which we've built over a period of years, and the kiddies, as soon as they were born, were in slings, and they grew up in the workshop until they were away to school. Now there's just you and me.
I know, dear, I know. But I manage.
You don't need to. It's such a messy business, slip. But it is delicious looking.
Like chocolate.
Aye, it'll kill you if you eat it, but it's good looking stuff. Right, I didn't prepare myself there, did I? Okay, where shall I get onto here? Sometimes with this kind of thing, you know, the worse it is, the better it is, really, which suits my style. Less of a heckling, or I'll stop your pocket money. Oh dear, what a mess. Right, good. Damn.
Can we just ask Hannah, obviously a lot of what she does is repetitive and things like that. Do you ever get to the point of thinking, oh no, I don't want to do another one that's
question.
Do something pretty random.
I'm not sure everybody heard that, so I'll just repeat it. You do a lot of repetitive work. Do you ever get to the point where you kind of go, oh, blow this, I don't want to do something repetitive, I just want to do something completely random? You might have started something there by the pause.
I mean, I do a lot of not necessarily symmetrical or repetitive floral designs, but not random in the way that Dylan Bowen would be random. I don't go to that extreme ever, no. No, it's not my way of being, really.
No. Although I think, we're always up against the next deadline, and we both feel the frustration of not being able to play.
Yeah.
Which we'd like to do. There's a great video of Hannah doing one like this, which was filmed from above and then speeded up, and has techno music, so she does it to techno. But if you go on, there's a website called the Ceramics Congress. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is brilliant. And we made a little film for it during lockdown, and filmed Hannah doing one of these and sped it up, and it's well worth seeing. And it's now in the private collection of the Reverend Richard Coles, no less, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And while we're name dropping, we had a message from Balmoral, didn't we? And the King personally, am I allowed to say this?
I don't know.
You can tell us. No,
We already told the, yes. The King personally asked for Hannah to do some plates with his cipher on.
Oh, fantastic.
Looks like my pension plan might mature.
Some more time for playing, perhaps.
I've paid in enough, God. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and free trail this
Okay.
this thing.
We'll just try and get a camera on you there so we can see it, because it's going to be fast.
It either will work or it won't work. And you probably won't be able to tell the difference. Not in a good way. Right, okay. Oops. Every little mark tells a story. I.e., I cocked it up.
Now we'll know if that gets, fired and somewhere else. We'll know that marks come from here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And make more of that. Don't you all just want to go home and play with slip now?
Grand. So my plan with these is I'll probably have to get a gas torch on them to toughen them up a little bit, but I want to try and get them over these molds so that on tomorrow they're dry enough to pop off.
So that will be dried off and then placed upside down on here.
What it would need to do would be, we need this to homogenize, basically, which is going to be tricky, actually, because you just, you can't rush clay, can you? But we'll try. At worst, it'll just stick and leave some of the decoration on the mold, but it'll.
But it's the right balance, isn't it? Having the slip dry enough that it doesn't stick, but the clay still wet enough that it'll mold over the top of the.
Yeah.
But that's, if you're in the studio, that's why you have to be in the studio all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's that moment of it being right, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can just.
How would you normally dry them off?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. When it's up to me.
How would you normally
we just leave them, really, and keep checking them. But we'd have kiln props and stack them up. So there's inch kiln props, so that there could be a bit of air float around them. But if you leave them in a draft, they can very easily just dry on one side, so you have to be really careful.
And what do you feel is the advantage of doing it this way, in the flat slab, as opposed to the other form you did, where you already pressed the form on the mould? What does it give you different?
I think it has more fluidity, really, so it kind of captures the fluidity of the slip. Plus, if you've got the sides, and I like to use the slip quite wet because I like that lack of control, it just runs back down in. So, and this is, it's an age-old technique. I guess a lot of sort of 17th, 18th century dishes were done in this way, and they're beautifully fluid. Literally just get a hold of it and then it on. But
Just, 12 minutes left.
12 minutes.
Oh, right, okay.
Phew.
So this is white slip on top of white slip, because it's slightly thicker than the slip that I've poured on. You will get a slightly different tone when it's got the glaze on top.
But it is it's the same slip?
Exactly the same.
Exactly
slip,
the
yeah.
same, but it's just that depth will give it a different tone. So when you put the glaze on top, are you putting a clear glaze on top of the slip?
We've got 3 different glazes that we use, and we have a honey, a kind of medium, and a piliwali, so each with different amounts of ironing. And so they're all...
You might need to explain what piliwali means to people who are not familiar with the term.
Piliwali is a really pale one.
Milk
A bit-
tea.
So yeah, I mean, on these, usually I'll mask out the flower heads and do them in the contrasting one to the rest of the body of the pot, so you get even more of a contrast of colour then.
We tend to find with the glazes that if you put the honey glaze or the medium glaze, you can get away with the medium glaze, can't you? But if you put the honey glaze over the green slip, it gets rather dark and dirgy looking. So you use the piliwali on that. So that gives you a nice bright green over the green slip, doesn't it? But the piliwali over some of the other slips can be a bit piliwali. So we, as Hannah was saying, you can use latex to mask out certain areas and then brush it in. It's very time consuming though, isn't it? And then you have lots of big, goody bits of latex covered in crumbly glaze all over the workshop. Right.
Yeah, if we can have, there you go.
It's not worth seeing, really.
Oh, yes. So do you dilute the latex when you apply it because you've had trouble taking it off and it's really thick? Do you dilute your latex, Doug?
Don't tend to. No, we tend to brush on a couple of coats, don't we?
I tend to make it quite thick so I can get hold of it.
Yeah. Knackers your paintbrushes as well, doesn't it? So always have a jug of warm water so you can in and out the warm water with the paintbrush. Stinks as well, doesn't it?
Can we have a camera on, Doug? Thank you.
What I'm going to do now is just bash the board a little to flatten it out. Sorry, I hope this doesn't splash you.
Is the mould a plaster mould?
The mould is a fire clay mould.
Fire clay.
Yeah, but we do the original ones that we have from Wentford Bridge. We've got molds, but we've also got the plaster master mold, which is all inscribed with the dimensions in Michael Cardew's hand on the back. It's a lovely thing to, because Michael Cardew was my big hero, really. Not so much at Wentford, but his early days at Winchcombe, the slipware that he made at Winchcombe was just extraordinary.
Do you make your own plaster molds, or do you outsource them?
No,
we hate
but we hate plaster. So it's just easier not to. We don't really have the setup to do it, do we? We could probably make the setup, but we both go, oh, no, we don't like plaster.
You don't like plaster. You don't want to be bringing plaster into that workshop.
Get onto pottery class.
Yeah. He's always going to be in the way of someone, unfortunately. Can we move slightly?
Might do a grumpy fish.
Sorry?
I might do a grumpy fish.
Oh, yeah.
And how long would this ordinarily take to dry now in your workshop, Hannah, for you to, before you'd be firing it?
It so depends on the weather, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In Scotland, in the winter, months.
Months and months.
But you have to dry them really carefully as well, don't you?
Yeah.
You'll dry them with a board on top.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, try not to rush them because they do, they will warp across that.
Yeah, it's a huge
Scale.
span, isn't it?
But yeah, literally in the winter it'll be 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Wow. And what informs your designs in terms of, what are you looking at in terms of your pattern making? Anything specifically?
Very much what's around us. We live in the middle of nowhere. And we've got a lovely garden. So we look at a lot of what's around us. There's forest at the back of us and sheep farm at the side.
Midges all around.
Lots of midges. But I look at a lot of sort of 17th, 18th century slipware and at a lot of folk art as well, a lot of textiles, Eastern European textiles, who I guess, the repeating imagery that they saw, which would be very similar to the kind of things that we're seeing out the window. And when we go for walks, yeah.
Quite often feel there's a bit of a stigma about working in a traditional manner, that it's kind of old hat and reproduction. And, we found that when we've applied for grants and things like that we sort of fall between two stools, really, because, we don't fit the heritage crafts thing quite.
Yeah.
Although Hannah was Heritage Craft Maker of the Year 2-3 years ago.
Remember?
It's a good investment, isn't it? So, we, but we, and then if we're applying for grants, we're not contemporary enough. So we struggle with that, don't we? Really? But tradition isn't just copying; it's taking those elements, putting your own bit to it, and moving it forward. And there is a challenge in using traditional materials, in that loads of people do it. So finding your own voice within that is the challenge, really.
Got just a few minutes left.
Okie dokie.
Got just a few minutes left. 4 by my watch. So if we've got any questions. Oh, yeah, over here. We've got a few. Oh, they're flying up now. We'll take this one first. This. So does like the winter, because it's colder and takes longer, do you produce more in the summer than the winter? Does your production increase due to the freezing?
We just
Just down to deadlines, really.
Just deadlines.
it's flat out all the time, really, isn't it? We have the kilns, the kiln room. If anybody comes to our talk tomorrow,
Today.
oh my goodness,
Today.
what are we going to say? What are we going to say?
Today at 1:30 in the theatre.
Oh right, today at 1:30 in the theatre. If anybody comes to that, we've got film of our workshop. And as a kind of tour around, and you can, you'll be able to see that the kilns are in a kiln room, and we use the heat from those kilns to heat the workshop and dry the pots. But in the winter, if there's been, if we've had a few days off over Christmas, first of all, getting back in the workshop is horrendous because the clay's like ice. But getting the pots dry enough to get the cycle of kiln firings going takes forever, doesn't it? Once the first kiln's going, then stuff tends to dry. And we always say, we must make sure we've got some pots left on the shelf so we can just put the kiln on the day before we go in the workshop after Christmas. But invariably we don't, do we? So.
And there's a question here. On the flatware, Doug, do you do any feather combing?
I beg your pardon?
On the flatware, on the flat slaps, do you do any feather combing?
No.
No.
Hannah does, but no, I'm terrible at it.
But
Really?
not on a large scale like those amazing old dishes. I don't really tend to do that particularly.
But amazing skills, the people who do it. I do have Sid Tustin, who was Michael Cardew's first apprentice at Winchcombe. I used to know him when he was elderly, and he gave me a quill for feathering with, but I could never do it justice, really, so no, I don't. It's slip trailing's like handwriting, really, and Hannah's handwriting is immaculate and mine is illegible, and so it's it's an extension of that, really. But you can do feathering, can't you? And you do on mugs occasionally, and sometimes within detail on.
Well, I tend to do it within a small panel of decoration rather than over a huge sheet.
Time for one last question. No, we're good.
The question is, how have we got away with it for so long?
Do you ever raw fire?
Yes, used to. I used to raw fire everything. But that was when I was in Devon in my workshop there. But space was an issue because you had to then have lots of pots sitting around, and I had a big wood kiln then. And now, if you bisque fire stuff, you can stack it up. And I think things like this, are just too much
yet
time.
Another risk.
Too much time invested in it, yeah. But no, we don't anymore. Everything's bisque now, isn't it? We should get back to it, really. We always say we should get back to raw firing, but we never do.
Well, lovely. Thank you very much, both. That wraps us up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a bow. Have a bow. And wonderful start. And you can see their finished work in the demonstrators exhibition upstairs if you want to have a look at what it all looks like when it's finished. And we'll be back here in half an hour with Iku and Ewan's demonstration. And also, can I please ask you not to come onto the stage? Just please exit by the rear exits, please, because people fall all the time. So please don't come onto the stage. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your morning.